Hosanna filiotavi, benedictus qui veni, in nomine Domini, omnius populi omnius tuum, Salve Patri Sancto, Pueri Hebreo Hora. Hey guys, gals, how's it going? So, just got back from church, had a good time, saw the bishop. All is right in the world. That's what the song that I introed with yesterday was for. Ecce sacerdos magnos, qui invenidurit, natibor in blanco. That is the bishop processional song. So I hope everybody's doing good. I'm a little tired, but let's knock this one out, shall we? So, Chinese traditional medicine is part of Eastern alchemy. It goes way back. I talk about, time to time, I talk about mercury immortality potions being like a proto-Neuralink by which the emperors were tricked by their scheming court viziers into going against the natural order of things and doing so with the ever-increasing death drive of immortality as a horizon, impossible to achieve, always out of arm's reach. And yeah, you gotta be careful about that. Now, it's part Eastern alchemy and part Mao Zedong supplanting a lack of healthcare inside the Chinese communist system by telling people they could cure their ailments with eye of newt and things of that nature. You got cancer? I'm sure there's a lizard out there that'll cure it. Go find it. So you see a big disrespect for nature in Maoism. That's why they killed the sparrows, and that led to the locust swarms, and that led to the starvation of tens of millions of people. And it just goes to show, do not want to disrespect nature, because nature is far more powerful than many people give it credit for. Luchador, more like Lucifer, would be such a good racist wonk preacher, but I'd never do that to Jesus. Ever. I'd never want to do that, and I never do that, no matter what was on the table. But it just goes to show that's how that works, You connect two things in that sort of way, like Luchador, the Mexican wrestler, with Lucifer, and then it gets stuck in people's ears. It's rough. It's rough out there. Most crime radiates from stupidity, because intelligent people don't want to undermine their communities. And if, you think about it, why would you want to do that to yourself, to your progeny? I mean, it just goes to show, like, how the combustion engine ruined people's brains by thinking that they could just move from one place to another extremely quickly. And frankly, that started with the British. The British started that global colony system. I mean, you can trace it back to the Indo-Europeans and the Phoenicians, but what really set the destruction of society in motion was the British Empire. A lot of here's a fun fact. Elon is barrel-chested, but he has 0 pectoral muscles. So when he has his shirt off, he quite literally looks like a Cybertruck. They got a front upped. Wild to see that big recall right at that moment. Some people will call it 45D chess. He's protecting your Cybertrucks from being vandalized. But here's the thing is, like, most people in Teslas are good, right? Most of them. But based on what I've seen, most people in Cybertrucks are not good people. So there's probably a lot of people just waiting for the opportunity and feeling like it got pushed overboard with all this really annoying political newsreel crap. which, you know, like, although Trigger those people lean super hard into the newsreel crap, so I don't think that it's just a manifestation of left-wing ideals. It's not. It's a seesaw of politics in general that divides and conquers the people that it's set underneath. When politics is your foundation, which is like mayors and republicanism and stuff like that. When politics is your foundation, your actual traditional foundation of your culture, which is called fascism, and your religion, which is called, in a way, racism, is cracked apart and replaced with sand in a very real way. People have to be wary of that because you can see it infect a variety of different organizations and communities and areas to the detriment of a vast majority of the people there. A lot of autistic people, they just have vivid fantasy worlds in their heads as a coping mechanism for having poor social skills and not being able to spend time with friends as much as a normal person. It's amazing. Mainly manifests out of poor social skills, the inability to link up to your own intuition as well. I personally believe that most of that starts in the gut, but it doesn't mean, yeah, and this is one of the big reasons why, like, autistic people aren't inherently bad, and they never have been. But it's good to eat good, otherwise you will suffer negative consequences that will hurt you as the person who's not eating good. So, here's the thing about that. They tend to get heavily medicated too, into a stupor, and or groomed into being obsessed with physical objects. And that sucks. Because that is a recipe for even increasing misery. And there's nothing wrong with being autistic, but there's everything wrong with being miserable. You see. You need genuine coping mechanisms, and you need thriving mechanisms, and you need surviving mechanisms, and you need all of those mechanisms in place, trained into you from a young age so that you can properly survive in this world. And when organizations like Autism Speaks go, no, you know, do whatever you want, and if they want to eat nothing but chicken nuggets and clutch super hard to their childhood toys, let them. It's not a good way of growing out of that. And then you end up more and more behind the secession that you're supposed to go down, your development. You end up more and more behind in development, and you don't catch up to your peers, and then you have less and less friends. See, this is a whole big thing with autism. But a lot of autistic people are still great people, and they have vivid fantasy worlds in their heads. But the problem with some autistic people is the fact that those fantasies are given so much credence and too much respect and too much love and not enough critique. And if you tell somebody that they're automatically good, then they'd have no reason to improve. So you have to bridge that gap without being a hypercritical, POS and putting people down and making things worse, and doing the bare minimum to criticize people and change things in a way that's better for them in the long run. You got to bridge, you got to be somewhere in the middle of that. You got to make sure that things are active but not hyper-controlling and hyper-fixated on the control of other people. These hyper-fixations should be trained out of basically everybody. We encourage that by saying, oh, you'll just be a specialist, you'll be a technician, you'll be a mathematician, you'll be a scientist. But the best scientists are polymaths, and some of the best scientists that I've run into over my studies, even when I was back in slightly agnostic but never atheist, are religious people. Like the person who created the theory of the Big Bang, which is a genius theory, used mathematics to prove that there's a focal point of the universe. And no matter how much quantum physicists scream at the fact that religious people had things to do with science to the point where they replaced them with not science, with lies, it's still true. And that's, it is it's gained power by respecting the law of God that shot through all these things that you can see connecting the dots in a constellation of order in a very chaotic and ever-shifting and changing world. The Titanic wasn't sunk for the insurance. It was sunk by New York financiers to provide an apartment complex for Deepwater Ocean Jews. Think about it. Iceberg. Put that in your crock pot and boil it. Uh. Just jokes, just jokes. But to be serious, Ben Shapiro has essentially served the purpose that Mossad and the Israeli state wanted for him. And he was always propped up, just like H3H3 is propped up. He was always propped up. And he served his purpose. Like, he was a teenage Iraq war cheerleader and has said for a decade that Gazans love living in human sewage and starving because the sewage pipes in their areas were bombed and they were blockaded and starved. And that's already done. You know, the goals that Ben Shapiro set about to achieve are already done. And it's not like he was the main, you know, he didn't put the entire team on his back in that regard. He sat by and got fat in AC while IDF soldiers got, you know, their legs blown off in the process of blowing other people's legs off. The civilians mostly. But yeah, no, Ben Shapiro is cooked. Like, he bet heavily against Trump and lost. He was a never Trumper. A lot of people don't remember this because he immediately, as soon as Trump wins, you know, he immediately starts singing a different tune in the second term. But it took him 2 years to come around the first time. And he was more than happy to stoke the division over and over and over, stoking that fire between people that was ripping apart many communities that I saw and took me away from friends by indulging in the argumentation of the era. And he was a genuine never Trumper. Unlike Jordan Peterson, who, I'm getting to, Jordan Peterson, the only thing holding his business up, the center support beam for the entire house of the Daily Wire. There's literally nobody else that I can even think of, except for maybe, is Matt Walsh on the Daily Wire? You see, I tried to get into Matt Walsh, didn't like him that much. Jordan Peterson, genuinely genius. And he's the only thing propping that up. Nobody cares about Ben Shapiro. People tune into Ben Shapiro to make fun of him. So in a way, he's kind of a political that people are only looking for comedy from. They're not taking his points very seriously, unless they already believe everything he's already saying, and they're just clapping like seals because they feel like somebody is indulging their deeply held opinions about things. That's nothing innovative. And the people that propped him up in the beginning as this, you know, violin savant, you know, childhood genius sort of guy who just talked really fast because he was on amphetamines. I know what that looks like. He's done. He's cooked. It's evident through religions that ancient people genuinely loved humanity and the human form. There was, in that time, much more to contrast from. And the respect of that greater system had to be held to maintain the circuit. Now we have enslaved and tortured nature to the point of its withering. What remains is a direct reflection of the control of humanity, for better or for worse. And as for what's worse, the projected on and anthropomorphized crafts of man set us in a negative light compared to the individualism prior embodied by all of God's creation in a well-balanced garden. Now, every time we look at nature, we just see human failure, and it makes us hate each other, and it makes us hate ourselves. And at the bare minimum, we're not as happy as we were. And shifting baseline syndrome ensures that young people of every single generation will grow up with less and less and less of the things that they genuinely need to be happy and fulfilled. And let me tell you, store-bought is not fine. It is not okay to live in a hellish, depressing world and then medicate yourself to the point where you don't feel like it's a hellish, depressing world. That does not help. There's genuine reasons why our instincts are telling us that something is very, very wrong. When we see a bunch of glyphosate dumped, or we see a 400-year-old tree, ripped down and stumped, there's a genuine reason why it makes us feel bad, and it manifests in gigantic dust storms and dirt hurricanes like the one we're seeing sweeping across the Nebraska area right now. Like, the Dust Bowl was something we learned from, and we seem to have forgotten the lessons of the World War I era tragedies that befell us because of the bad decisions we were making. So keep that in mind, friends. Be wise. Don't be one of these fools rushing headlong into destruction for all things. Try to do your best. If you can maintain one tree, like my beautiful oak, maintain that tree. It's more than enough. Do your part, and a lot can regrow from older trees. And if you're up on your seeding, you can start. You can do some good stuff. However, you rip out storied old trees, the ground dries up, the sand whips up into the air, it starts peppering everything, making things very uncomfortable. The shade is gone. The birds have nowhere to park. The birds that propagate the seeds disappear from your area. The seeds are no longer propagated. Everything goes to an absolute deserted hell. So you really don't want that. It doesn't take some sort of a green new activist, a-hole to point that out. All right, Joel. That's it for today. I'm going to take a nap. Cheers.